Yo guys, how you doing? Today we're going to talk about memories. That maybe some of your memories aren't actually true. You remember something that you say, yes, something like this has happened to me. Like I remember it with so much detail, but maybe that hasn't happened to you. Maybe one time. And you may be like, how I can develop false memories. This is the right video for you, and we're going to talk about it. Like, what are the natural factors for developing false memories? And what happens? What are the things that can make us to develop false memories? Your memory doesn't act like a video recording. It doesn't play back. It reconstructs the piece of information, expectations, or even experiences you had and combine all of them. And it's how you remember something. That's how your memory works. So it's a reconstruction job doing in your brain. Sigmund Freud and Pierre Janet were neurologists. And you know, of course, Sigmund Freud. And he's so famous about psychology. And they were doing some research on false memories, like how memory works, influenced, changed, or even remembered. And also, Pierre Janet was working on dissociation and knew there is a thing called hypnosis that can bring back some of the memories that have been forgotten. Let's talk about presupposition. What is that? It's a question that already assumes something is already true, but it may not be. Like, for example, I say to you, what shade of blue was the wallet? It already assumes that the wallet was blue, but maybe it was orange, maybe it was red. I didn't ask what color was the wallet. So this has two affections. This affect your memory in two ways. True affection and false affection. True affection, if the wallet is already blue, you remember it easily and with more detail. So you know now what shade of blue was the wallet. But if it was false, you're going to again remember like it was blue, even though it was red. You, this is the time you remember it false. You remember that was blue and falsely. That's how you develop false memories. Because why this happens? Like even the false affection, you already thinking that maybe later, 1 week later or 1 year later, the wallet was blue, even though it was red. It's because you already think that the person who is questioning you is already telling the truth. So you say, yeah, maybe if it was blue because the questioner wasn't tell wrong or lie to me. They were giving me right informations. Even wording of questions can affect your mind. Even one word. Imagine you're on the road and you're going straight away, and later someone asks you, did you see the stop sign? And because the question already assumes that there was actually a stop sign there, so you may be like, you remember it, there was actually a stop sign there. So it already assumes it was a stop sign there. Maybe it wasn't there. But if we change the wording of question, like for example, I say, did you see a stop sign? The word a. So you may be like, no, maybe I didn't see. It doesn't already assume that there was already a stop sign there. People who heard the stop sign were more likely to remember there was actually a stop sign there, even though it wasn't. Or another research done by Elizabeth Luftus and John Palmer, and they recruited some volunteers for this research, and participants watched the car accident on a video, and they divided into two groups. And they asked group A how fast were the cars going when they hit each other. And the group B, yeah, how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other. People who have heard the smashed, estimated higher speeds. And later, a week later, they asked them, did you see broken glass on the road? Even though there wasn't any broken glass on the road. But because of the wording of the question and because the differences between hit and a smash, people who have heard a smash, they were more likely to remember they have seen broken glass on the road than who have heard hit. So you can see how wording of questions can also have effect on your brain. Maybe the office experiment. They put people in the office and later they ask them to remember what they have seen in the office. And mostly said correctly, like they said what they have seen in the office. But some of them made false information, like they developed false memory because they had expectations. They said objects that were in the office, even though the objects that they said weren't actually in the office, because they had expectations, because they had this office schema that they usually see in the office, even though their objects weren't there. But they thought they have seen, they thought they remembered, even though it was never there. That's how you can develop false information again because of this office schema you have. We can talk about robbery experiment, a fake robbery experiment done again by researchers, and they divided into two groups, I mean participants, and the group A watched the robbery live, like they were at the scene, and the other group saw the fake robbery on the television, the same robbery. People who watched it on the television remember it with more details and correctly than who watched it live. And there were also people, the participants made mistakes remembering objects that were in the robbery scene. They said they have seen some objects in the scene even though they weren't there. Again, because they had this idea that they usually see in the robbery scene, even though those objects weren't actually there. And because this what is happening right here, it's because of the expectation they have. They are like, I have this idea, I know we usually see these type of objects in robbery scenes. And even though when they were in the robbery scene, they didn't see those objects. But later the researchers asked them, they said that we have seen those objects there, even though those weren't there. So yeah, that's how expectations can affect your mind and develop false memories. And there are two ways that brain store memories: gist and verbatim. Verbatim is the specific details of an event you remember, but gist is the general idea of something. And usually the and developing false memory usually comes from the gist memory because of the general meaning. When you have general meaning, general idea of something, and you don't know the details, your brain automatically fill up the details, fill up the missing details, and with expectations also again. Then again, researchers wanted to do some research on mood affections. Does really mood have some affections on false memories? Then again, they put some participants in the research. They changed their emotions. Like some of them were sad, some of them were neutral, and some of them were happy. People who have been sad paid more attention to specific details rather than developing false information, rather than rely on gist memory, general idea of something. But people who were happy, they were more likely to rely on general idea of something and fill up the details, even though the details actually didn't happen. Like, for example, I say words like peel, blanket, dream, night, tired. I didn't say the word sleep, but later I ask people, did I say sleep? And they say, some of them say, yes, we have heard you said sleep, even though I didn't say sleep. It's because people brains are relying on the gist memory, the general idea of something, because all of these words were related to word sleep. So they rely on the general idea and they're going to be like, yeah, you said sleep, even though I didn't say. And then again, we have two types of memories, semantic and episodic. Episodic memory are the events that actually happen to you personally, like your first relationship, first day at job, or first day at school, everything. Yeah, it's your personal experiences. But the semantic memory is the general knowledge you have. Like, the capital of France is Paris. Dogs bark. Apples are fruits. And sometimes our brains combines these two types of memories and connecting them together, and it creates false memories. Like, for example, you went to a birthday party, and usually you see, because you have this general knowledge that you see in parties are balloons. Later, you may think that you have seen balloons in the party, even though there weren't any balloons in the party. It's because of the general knowledge you had. And that affects your mind, that affects your brain, and it makes you to remember the things that actually weren't there. It's because of the general knowledge you had. Again, we can talk about, like, your older brother tells you, remember when you fell into the lake? And you, like, no, I didn't. But after you hear the story so many times, and even he shows you a picture when you were at the lake, even though you didn't fall into the lake, and hearing the story several times, you're going to believe that it actually happened, and it changed your memory, and you're going to believe it, and you're maybe 1 year later, you're going to be like, yeah, I remember I fell into the lake. That's what happened to me. That's how, again, develop false memories. Let's talk about US military members. They wanted to test them, like, if they ever captured as host and wanted to get information out of them, they put them under some hard exercises, like hard tortures, hostile, and body pressure on these US military members for about 30 minutes. And the researchers feed them information that was actually misinformation. And later, the US military members misidentified their interrogator and with somebody that wasn't actually the interrogator. So what is happening there is about misleading information. And this is how misinformation can work. Like, if if you want to feed somebody misinformation, like somebody had experienced something already, and you giving them misinformation about that experiences they had, you can distort or change their memory in so many ways. Misinformation are everywhere, even on social media, even on news. Every other individual person, you can hear from them. Like, for example, you have experienced a thing and you have seen that event in reality, and you see on Instagram they changed it, and you may be like, maybe the thing I have seen wasn't actually real. this Instagram reel is real. So this is the type of misinformation they can develop and leading you to false memory again. There was this 1990 research that people who had some issues, like they had mental issues, like for example, depression or anxiety, and they came out of the therapy, like they went to therapy and they came out with another problem. And they thought they had some problems when they were child, like they had some ritual abuse or some unusual events happened to them when they were child. Researchers wanted to know what were the therapists using that made them to think such a thing. And the therapist used some therapies, and there are like imagination exercises, dream interpretations, and hypnosis and suggestive questions. Suggestive questions is one of the things that can lead to misinformation. It's a question that encourage or like pushes a person towards a particular answer the questioner want, instead of letting them answer that freely. For example, you see a car accident and I ask you, what did you see? And you describe it yourself. But imagine I say, did you see the red car that went through the other car and had collision? And the question already suggests that there was actually a red car and the car hit another car. Maybe the car wasn't red, maybe the car hit the tree. The car accident was with the tree, not was like with another car. And that's how again this suggestive question can influence your memory. So what are the natural factors that leading us to develop false memories? One of them, creative imagination. Some people like have this creative imagination with much more details that they think that something that has really happened to them because they imagine it clearly. Another one is dissociation. Some people like feel disconnected from their own feelings, from their own thoughts, from their own surroundings. Researchers think that these people even don't know where the information come from. Like they saw it, they dreamed it, they have heard it from somebody else. Social pressure. Important people can affect your memory again, like police officer or a teacher or a doctor. For example, a police officer comes to you and say that, did you see the man that wear a black jacket? And ask it several times. Because of this repetition, is going to affect your memory. And you may be like, yeah, I think I have seen this man, even though it wasn't really a man with black jacket and you haven't seen this guy. But because the police officer repeatedly several times said that you've seen this guy with black jacket, and this is social pressure and can affect your mind, develop false memories. And beliefs about memory. Some people really don't know how memory works, and they are like the creative imagination one. Like they think if something like they imagine in something clearly, they think that actually happened to them once or two times. Or confidence in memory. Some people think that they have this intelligence and they remember everything with more detail, don't have these false memories. Even these type of people are in danger to develop false memories, even though they think they have confidence, like, yeah, I can remember it very much detail. I am high intelligent. I have really good memory. These people are also in danger to develop false memories. You know, developing false memory is actually a normal feature of human beings. It happens to every individual person. It doesn't matter you're intelligent, you remember it so good. It doesn't matter. It happens to everyone. And even this confidence they have, they think you'll ask these people type of people something, and they don't have the information about that, and they don't remember it maybe, and because they want to fill the gap, they remember it false and saying false information to you. And traumas can even have effects on your memories. can even affect how you can access your memory or even your emotions. And that's why we want to talk about source monitoring error. That's what is that? It's like you don't know the information you have where it actually came from. Like you saw it, you imagine it, or maybe when you were dreaming it, or somebody told you, you don't know the information. Like there's a research about that, about again a car accident. They divide the participants divided into two groups. Group one were like the warning one. They got a warning about they going to get misleading information. But the other group didn't like get the warning, and the researchers gave them descriptions. Like they showed them the car accident, okay, and then finished the video. They ended the video and then gave them the descriptions after the car accident, like what happened after the car accident. And because they imagined it, like, uh, because of the description the researchers gave me, I now know what happened after the car crash. But they gave you description, and when you want to remember it, you don't know where the information was actually from. And what I mean by that, like because they gave you description and you imagined it, you think that you have seen the description on the video, even though you haven't seen that on the video, but you just read the description. So that's again it's going to like be source monitoring error. Like if I want to give you a simple example of that, you again watch a car crash, okay, and the video ends, and I tell you that after the car crash the driver got out and started crying, and I ask you, so what happened after the car crash? You say, yeah, the driver got out and started crying. But this is what information I told you. You don't know what actually happened after the video. And you imagined it because I told you what happened after the car crash. And you later maybe like, where did I get this information? Like, how do I know what happened after the car crash? That's a source monitoring error that again can develop false informations or false memories. Attachment styles, especially avoidant attachment styles, can affect again on developing false information and accessing childhood traumas and experiences people have had. But this is like a association, this is like a relationship. they the researchers don't think this is 100% true, like this is the actual truth about that attachment styles have like affect developing false memories, but there's a relationship between them. And even aging, sleep deprivation, and false memory syndrome has also effect on developing false memories. Even like it's controversial about false memory syndrome, and it's not actually included in the DSM book, but yeah, there's like researchers saying about that too. You may be like, eyewitnesses are really reliable. Of course, confident testimony is not accurate, is not the same as the accurate testimony. And you may be like, okay, so how can we trust the testimony, trust the eyewitnesses? And because the eyewitnesses are going to change their memories after the time, like because passage of time, getting information from the news even, and from other eyewitnesses, and maybe even the other experiences they had, and all of them going to connect it together and make this eyewitness changing their own memory and saying other things that's not actually true. So yeah, eyewitness memory can be actually be influenced. So why does brain do this? Memory in the brain is not actually for archive of things. Memory is for recognize patterns, learning from past experiences you had, and make decisions about future. It just stores the most important information rather than every single detail.